Being a journalist means in-depth analysis that unravels hidden truths, that question the status quo and fact-checks government.
These criminal elements hiding under the cloak of surveillance contractors are the APC elements.
Do you have facts to prove that? Being a journalist means waking up every day with a burning desire for peace, equity, and justice for all citizens.
We're being told that the choice you have is to take the lesser of two evils.
It means patriotism via the prism of objectivity and accountability. It means giving my platform to the masses to discuss issues that matter to them.
Some of them, if they bring budget and the budget they look, some they sleep, they're going to ask how much you are on. I have it.
Thereby shaping government policies and laws. My name is Osasu and I am the People's Journalist.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Osasu Show. I am joined now by Zahra Mohammed and Jumae Christopher. We're here at the Internally Displaced Persons Camp in Abuja. June 20th marked the World Refugee Day. It's a day where we commemorate with refugees across the world. But the internally displaced persons in our country today are treated as alien citizens. They might as well be refugees. They are left with no food, no clean drinking water, and the children are also left without an education. On today's episode, we show you a documentary that explores the plight of refugees across the world and internally displaced persons in Nigeria. Don't go anywhere, it promises to be a very educative episode. The United Nations Refugee Agency was established on December 14, 1950, by the UN General Assembly with a 3-year mandate to address the refugee crisis caused by World War II. On July 28, 1951, the United Nations deemed fit to extend the 3-year mandate of the Commission, hence the operation to date. The United Nations Refugee Agency has been working ever since to help refugees across the world to attain a better livelihood. For Africa, the decolonization of our continent produced the first of numerous refugees needing the UNHCR's intervention.
We need to welcome refugees.
They need a lot of help.
They have limited healthcare needs.
All hope is not lost. All will be well.
Refugees, legally speaking, are internally displaced persons who have crossed the border of their own country to seek refuge in another country as a result of conflicts, as a result of all sorts of factors that threaten their own lives and livelihood means.
Nigeria, for one, has been a host community of refugees for many years. As a result of conflicts that have happened across Africa, many refugees from Liberia, Sierra Leone, DRC, and elsewhere have found home in Nigeria. Also, as a result of many of the challenges we've had in our country, the Boko Haram insurgency, the herders and farmers conflicts, and various other community clashes that have happened over the years, we now also have Nigerians living as refugees in our neighboring host countries and also outside of Africa.
You can't stop anyone from seeking asylum. The Nigerian government would not have a way of knowing if someone who is leaving Nigeria, for example, is planning to seek asylum in another country. And so you cannot stop anyone from seeking asylum. The only thing Nigerian government is always propagating is, if you are migrating, migrate in a safe and regular manner so you don't become a victim of trafficking. And if you must seek asylum, then I don't know why anyone would want to flee Nigeria to seek asylum. Most times people just, look for excuses. Some of them run away and say, they are homosexuals, they are lesbians, and it's not tolerated in Nigeria. they are political enemies of the government and all that. You know, people just come up with various excuses to seek asylum. So it depends on why they are seeking asylum. There's really nothing anyone can do about that.
Another reason why Nigerians flee, especially women, are sexual harassment and domestic violence.
Insurgency, ethnic conflicts, inhumane treatments, poverty, religious crisis, and other violations of human rights are some of the reasons refugees leave their countries seeking greener pastures. On World Refugee Day, which is commemorated on the 20th of June every year, we celebrate the strength, courage, and perseverance of millions of refugees across the world. The theme of this year's Refugee Day is Step with Refugees, Take a Step on World Refugee Day.
Internally displaced persons are different from refugees. Internally displaced persons are people who have been uprooted, but they remain within their country. But refugees are those who have crossed the border. So in Calabar, it's true, like I said, not Calabar, in some parts of Cross River, Ogoja is one, for instance. We have refugees from Cameroon that have crossed over, like I told you, as a result of the conflict in the English-speaking Cameroon. But of course, we have also had a long-standing or persistent crisis because of how Nigeria ceded the Bakassi region to Cameroon as a result of the International Court of Justice judgment many years ago. So because those people that were asked to go to Cameroon are still going back and forth on the river between Cameroon and Nigeria, it is more or less a stateless, there are more of stateless persons. There is no state, for instance, where we do not have internally displaced persons. Their condition is appalling. They are appalling. They need a lot of help.
We have different kinds of refugees, those that, you know, are affected by disasters, natural disasters, those that are affected by war, insurgency, and so on, you know, and it's just a temporary thing. There will be peace in the various countries where they're coming from. Everything will be all right, and they will go back to wherever they're coming from. I just want them to keep hope alive. All hope is not lost. All will be well.
Nobody leaves their country willingly. It's as a result of the pain or the conflict or the war they've ensued. And also humanitarian disasters could also factor into this. Also, Nigerians should speak up when refugees are unfairly targeted or where their rights are abused in country. Last year in January, there were several Cameroonian refugees who were abducted by the security agents secretly and taken out of Nigeria. This violates international refugee law, both at the United Nations and at the African Union level. And so it's important that Nigerians begin to see how this interrelates with what they are doing. If, as a Nigerian, you flee Nigeria because of conflict, how would you feel if you are then forcibly moved back to stay in a community which is no longer safe for you?
No one wants to be a refugee. No one woke up and say, oh, I want to be in some refugee camp. And if you look at the refugee situation, it's a current crisis. It's a crisis because today when you go to refugee camp, they don't even have adequate amenities. In some camps, they have limited water sources. They have limited healthcare needs.
In a time where 1% of the world's population are refugees and one person is forcibly displaced every 2 seconds, both the national and international communities are confronted with a monumental task of ensuring protection for these groups of persons.
When you ask about statistics, we are talking of counting. And there are situations where counting becomes difficult when they ask you how many IDPs are in northeast Nigeria. They'll tell you 1.8, they tell you 2.3, they tell you a number of figures. The difficulty is actually in counting people that are on the move. When it comes to refugees, the system is much more clear, and we have registered, for instance, 2,000 refugees in the Lagos area. These are refugees that have been in this country for quite some time, some of them 15, 17 years. And you have the 35,000 Cameroonian refugees. These ones we have registered. But we have more Cameroonian refugees. I'm being told, we are told that in Taraba State, for instance, where we have registered only 3,000 Cameroonian refugees, we are being told there are 6,000. So it is true that there are more than the ones that we have registered, but those are the ones that we can talk of with authority. In Africa, the numbers are huge. The few that I remember is that in Uganda we have 1.2 million refugees. In Chad we have 530,000 refugees. In Kenya you have another 400,000 refugees. In Ethiopia you have 700,000 refugees. Huge numbers we're talking about. So there are millions of refugees in Africa, mostly in East Africa.
I believe that this is still evolving, and the Nigerian government have an opportunity. They have an opportunity, one, to get effective database of these people who are being brought back. Two is to set up camps, set up temporary camps and ensure that adequate amenities are provided. But three is to also ensure that skill acquisition is important. So when they come back, before they've been reintegrated into the society, what kind of support would be provided to them by government, but not just government alone, but also other international development partners, because I think that it's a mindset to want to leave your country legally and migrate. It's a negative mindset that have been perpetuated by bad people. And I believe that government would only amplify this negativity if they don't take responsibility and do what is needed to be done in terms of providing better service delivery to citizens.
Nigeria also needs to do a lot more in terms of tackling security to ensure that we are not contributing to the increasingly large number of refugee populations we are seeing all over the world. So we should welcome refugees. We should do a lot more to raise our voices for justice and peace and security across the world.
We should be guided by the various legal instruments that guide the sector. For instance, since 1959, there have been refugee conventions by the United Nations. There have been protocols, on those conventions. Then there has also been the former Organization of African Unity Convention or Treaty on the treatment of refugees. There has also been an African Union Convention on the treatment of refugees. There is an ECOWAS treaty. There are so many other legal instruments. Now, it appears to me as if Nigeria has not been, treating refugees, in a manner that is in conformity with those laws.
I think that the government have to create more jobs for people and also create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. That way they are also indirectly creating jobs for these people and eliminating poverty to the barest minimum. Also security. This is one of the strongest concerns about Nigerians. So I think that the government needs to improve their fight against Boko Haram and other insurgencies that we face in Nigeria.
Amnesty International is a human rights organization, but we work with other agencies like the UN Refugee Council, as well as the Red Cross and other agencies to put our voice towards ensuring the respect for refugees. However, one of the campaigns that we launched a few years ago is called I Welcome Refugees. This is to ensure that many host communities, whether it's in Africa, Europe, America, are more understanding of why refugees fled their homelands in the first place and are better equipped with the knowledge and skills to know what to do to support refugees. Oftentimes people are scared when refugees enter our countries. We think they're going to take over the place. We think that they're going to perpetuate other unpleasant things that we're not familiar with. So the I Welcome campaign goes a long way to show that refugees are human beings like you and me, and that if we support them, then they are getting ready to be able to go home at a future date. But until then, we should do all we can to ensure that they are safe, their rights are protected, and that people know a lot more about what is happening in their countries.
We collaborate with the Refugee Commission and all other relevant stakeholders, when the need arises. Nigerians who are victims of trafficking and are desirous of coming back, we try to assist them come back with the help of the IOM. We've been bringing quite a number back, and we hope to bring those that are stranded in various countries back to Nigeria so we can rehabilitate them. We're working on Mali, and we hope to be bringing back some girls from Mali as soon as possible.
We're here today to celebrate the World's Refugees Day, just to show concern to the refugees and prove to them that we stand by them. In any situation they find themselves, we are always there to stand by them.
For us, durable solution is not only returning back to their area of origin. These IDPs can also remain in the places where they are now living. The government can make sure that these people have access to land, they have access to education, they have access to livelihood opportunities.
For the government of Nigeria, I would say that we have experienced or enjoyed very good collaboration from the government of Nigeria so far. Nigeria has been very welcoming of refugees. We have about 36,000, and the protection environment has been very, very conducive for our refugees.
Refugees do not only take hardship to societies, no. They also take their intellectual abilities, they take their skills. If you go to Norway, if you go to Germany and other Nordic states in Europe, for instance, they are ready to accept Syrian, Iraqi refugees because they have found them to be doctors, well-trained doctors, engineers, as well as IT people. So they are taking their skills, which they have learned in their own countries. In Nigeria, some of these asylum seekers, they run away to other parts of the world as refugees. They are also trained, they have skills. So they are not just there because they are running away from hardship, but they are also carrying along, the skills, the gifts, the personal endowments that they have.
It's really good that a lot of awareness is being done regarding what's happening around refugees all across the world. In Nigeria, we have about 239 refugees, and the internally displaced persons is over 2 million. So it's important that there's a collaboration to tackle this issue. So my message would be that yes, I'm glad that it's happening, but I hope that it will happen more to, most importantly, bring the needed changes that we desire.
The United Nations Refugee Agency, many civil society organizations and NGOs, including the Osasu Foundation, have hosted World Refugee Day events in order to draw public attention to the struggle of millions of refugees and internally displaced persons around the world.
We are happy today, on this great day, the World Refugees Day, a day set aside by the United Nations for the celebration or sensitization of the world about the efforts so far and achievements of the global world as far as internally displaced and refugees universally are concerned. For us at Durumi, the IDPs at Durumi or Abuja, we want to say that the Osasu show has done so much in our lives and the lives of IDPs in Nigeria that no NGO, no individual, no governmental agency has ever come out or has done 20% of what the Osasu show has done in the lives of IDPs.
We must continue to give them hope that they will return voluntarily. One day these conflicts will end, no matter in which way. For instance, I am of the opinion that Nigerian authorities should also explore other means of resolving the Boko Haram conflict as well as all other conflicts.
Being a refugee is not the end of the world. Being a refugee is not the end of life itself. There is hope, and I believe there is light at the end of the tunnel. Even as a refugee, you have a role to play in the society. You have a role to ensure that we have good values, even in camps. Today, when you go to some camps, you see that some of them are experiencing sexual violence, particularly from the women, the female at the receiving end. I believe that as refugees, in as much as sometimes you feel like you have nowhere else or nothing else to do, it's important that as long as you breathe, there is hope. And you can be that hope and be that light that would actually inspire what the society needs.
So my message to Nigerians in diaspora who are outside the shores of Nigeria: do not lose hope. The fact that you are alive means that there's a chance for a better tomorrow and that your future can change. You might have lost everything by fleeing from home, but the fact that you have life means you have a second chance. So please make sure that whatever you do while away from the country, you respect the laws of the land, you carry out legitimate business, and you also support other refugees like yourself who are also going through tough times like this. This year, 2019, is been declared by the African Union as the Year of Refugees and IDPs. And so basically it means that all African countries should do a lot more to showcase what they are doing to support refugees and internally displaced persons in Africa. It's an opportunity for us to celebrate countries like Uganda that has, over the years, accommodated hundreds of thousands of refugees from all over the world. And also to encourage countries like Nigeria, who are often a border country for many in the Lake Chad Basin area, as well as in West and Central Africa, to do a lot more to protect refugees in Africa.
Refugees are not, they're not, in my opinion, horrible people or bad people. It's just circumstances and situations that caused them to be refugees. And some of them have actually added more value in different places they've been, they've relocated to. So those Nigerians who are in diaspora who are adding value to wherever they are, they can't keep adding value to where they are. However, I really hope that they get the need and the requirement that they need comes to them. That's really what I wish them well. And I'm really hoping that someday we can actually celebrate what they've added into the country that they've gone for. It would be really great for them to be in the shores of our country, Nigeria. But however, as long as we're putting things in place to better the issues that surrounds refugee, I think we'll get there eventually one day.
I want to just encourage them that love is everywhere. We'll send our love to you. And because I'm a distributor of joy and laughter, I want them to just come up, switch on their joy, be happy again, because good news is on the way.
My word of encouragement to Nigerian refugees and other countries who are refugees here in Nigeria is for them to obey the laws. And they shouldn't see their current status as the end of the world. Okay, being a refugee doesn't mean that you can't be useful, doesn't mean that you're useless. So there are so many things that you can do. You should make yourself useful, economically useful to whatever country you're in, or if you're in Nigeria.
For many, there's no going back home as war continues to linger. The onus therefore falls on we the people and the government to ensure that we are protecting the rights of these refugees and internally displaced persons by bringing succor to their situation sooner rather than later.
I am the country director of Amnesty International Nigeria.
I'm the founder of Air Women Development.
I'm a stand-up comedian and master of ceremony.
I am a humanitarian and a brand strategist.
Step with refugees. Take a step with refugees on World Refugee Day.